Pomposa Abbey is an important religious complex built by Benedictine monks on the Insula Pomposia, a small island lying between the Po di Goro, that of Volano, and the sea. In these fertile lands, the presence of a Benedictine community is demonstrated by a fragmentary letter by Pope John VIII to the Emperor Louis II in the 9th century, although other sources give an earlier date. By the 11th century, thanks to donations and privileges, the abbey experienced a period of great prosperity. The large amount of accumulated wealth let it obtain the favor of Emperor Otto III, Duke of Saxony. The abbots became imperial princes to all intents and purposes, with the ability to issue edicts and laws on behalf of the sovereign, uniting both the religious and the civil power into one person. Everything within that ideal called Renovatio Imperii, through which Otto wanted to resurrect the ancient Roman Empire, integrating all his powers in his hands. The abbey was a renowned center of religious, artistic, and intellectual life. Guido d'Arezzo, inventor of modern musical notation, Dante Alighieri, and Torquato Tasso stayed here. From the 14th century, the slow decline of Pomposa began. The climatic and geographic changes caused by deviation of the bed of the Po made it a swampy and malarial zone, therefore unlivable. Today, the Benedictine Complex, after several conservative state interventions, is composed of 3 buildings: the Abbey Church of Santa Maria with its bell tower, the Monastery, and the Palazzo della Ragione. The building is composed of a variety of decorative elements belonging to different architectural styles that coexist harmoniously with each other, making it original and unique. To the original structure of the 8th century, the narthex was added with 3 large archways by the master Mazzulo, mentioned in the small memorial tablet to their right. The linear, almost primitive narthex is externally a masterpiece of traditional Oriental decoration. Exquisite terracotta friezes with figures and animals go through the entire brick wall, which contains the arcs and the 2 circular windows. Maiolica, included within star-shaped elements, alternate with solid tough sculptures, and the 2 circular transenas are decorated with winged griffins while eating the fruit of the life tree. The wall decorative cycle is definitely not comparable to a well-defined style, since the various decorations were taken from buildings from different times, in state of neglect. The research for beauty by manufacturers also obeyed a logic searching for the recovery of existing architectural elements to economize efforts and help decorating the structure. After the narthex, you enter the Church of Santa Maria, in the traditional structure from buildings in Ravenna, with the semicircular apse which is polygonal outside. It is internally divided into 3 naves, each of which is supported by columns with Roman and Byzantine capitals, which lead the eye towards the central apse fresco entitled Christ in Majesty with Angels and Saints, painted by Vitale da Bologna in 1351. To the right of Blessing Christ is the Virgin Mary, who presents the client of the work, the Abbot Andrea, while in her left hand she is holding a scroll with the inscription in Latin for the benevolence of the Almighty towards the community. The scenes below depict the evangelists, the scholars of the Church, and the stories of Saint Eustace ranging from his conversion to his martyrdom inside the fairy oaks. On the walls of the central nave, the 14th century frescoes of the Scuola Bolognese, depicting episodes from the Old Testament, the New Testament, and the Apocalypse, are placed respectively on the top, middle, and bottom fascias. These paintings are, at the same time, decoration and storytelling. The images replace the words, the sacred stories acquire meaning and educate the illiterate faithful, supporting them in prayer. The side naves are covered with sacred frescoes from the 14th century, but due to the bad state of conservation, you can observe only a few fragments. Turning the gaze towards the entrance, on the facade is, not by chance, the representation of the Last Judgment. The visual message it sends to anyone who comes out of this sacred place is clear. Good and evil committed in life will be judged in the afterlife. Salvation and damnation will be eternal. The vitality of the frescoes joins the quality of the mosaic and marble marquetry flooring, divided into 4 areas. The represented animals and monsters are allegories of Christ, the deer, evil, the dragon, and the faithful, the birds. Outside of the church, next to the narthex, the majestic 48-meter-high bell tower stands, a masterpiece of the architect Deusdedit, who designed it and superintended its construction in 1063, as the inscription at its base shows. The tower has a Romanesque Lombard structure divided into 9 orders. Proceeding from its base to the top, the windows are called single light, 2 light, 3 light, and 4 light windows, depending on the number of aligned openings they have. The stylistic device was intended to lighten the building and better expand the sound of its bells. As in the narthex, detailed terracotta decorations frame rare maiolica Eastern basins of great value. The monastery, next to the church, towers above its body with its height because it was raised in the 14th century to respond to the increasing number of the resident Benedictines. While the first floor housed the dormitory of the monks and the abbot's residence, on the ground floor there were some important areas from the decorative point of view. You start from the chapter house, the only room joined to the church, whose entrance facade has a large portal and 2 elegant fired brick 2-light windows. It preserves precious frescoes from the early 14th century from the Giotto school. The back wall is dominated by crucifixion, which is flanked by the 2 apostles, Peter and Paul, and Saints Guido and Benedict, while on the side walls there are painted in monochrome 6 prophets at each side. After that, you can see the refectory, whose walls house the most famous and valuable cycle of frescoes of Pomposa, painted between 1316 and 1320 and attributed to Pietro da Rimini. Divided into 3 scenes, it shows in the middle the blessing Christ between Saint John the Baptist, San Guido, the Virgin, and Saint Benedict, founder of the order. On the sides you can see the Last Supper and the miracle of San Guido, who is turning water into wine in front of the Bishop of Ravenna, Gebeardus. On the side walls you can see fragments of paintings narrating the monastic life dedicated to meditation and renunciation. Within walking distance of the church you can meet the Palazzo della Ragione, the heart of both spiritual and temporal powers, both centralized in the hands of the same authority, the Abbot of Composure. The building, built in the 11th century, looks like a massive feudal castle, although empty spaces dominate, thanks to the presence of 2 overlapping lodges. The structural interventions made in the course of the centuries have brought architectural elements from other disused buildings. This is particularly evident in the open galleries that show many columns taken from ancient buildings.